Welcome to Write Now Workshop Podcast, where you can write a book and change the world. I'm your host, Kitty Bucholtz, and this is episode 249, How to Find the Right Coach, an interview with Ann Kroeker, coming to you on Thursday, May 27th, 2021. I just finished such an interesting conversation with Ann Kroeker, who is a writing coach, among many other things. And we had so much valuable information that we were trying to share with the audience that we went on too long. Is this a surprise to you that I can talk for a long time about writing? No, it's not a surprise to you. But because of that, I am going to leave the introduction part here and get right into the episode. I think that you're going to find a lot of information that you may not have known, ways for you to figure out how you know whether or not you should be considering a book coach, and things that you can do in the meantime if you're like, yeah, I think I kind of want one, but maybe now's not a good time. So let's talk to Ann and learn more about how we can move your career another step forward. Today's guest is Ann Kroeker. Ann is a writing coach, author, speaker, and host of the podcast Ann Kroeker Writing Coach, which has landed on the Write Life's annual 100 Best Websites for Writers list every year since 2016. Ann leverages over 2 decades of experience in the writing and publishing world to serve and support writers looking for input and confidence to establish and advance their career. Her clients have achieved personal goals, landed contracts, hit bestseller lists, and won awards. Ann co-authored On Being a Writer, 12 Simple Habits for a Writing Life That Lasts, and authored Not So Fast, Slow Down Solutions for Frenzied Families, and The Contemplative Mom. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
This is so fun to meet you. We kind of met by email because we had mutual friends, and now I'm like, I think we should be friends for life.
I think we should too. This is the start of a long friendship.
That's right. Well, okay. So let's start out by first, there was a lot of information in your bio. Very impressive that you can tell us so much about yourself in such a short space. But let's just still kind of give us some of your personal, how did you get to this point where now you're a writer and a book coach and a podcaster?
Well, I mean, yes, like you, my writing life dates way back, and I even came from a really literary family. I think, a family of journalists. I was surrounded by books. So words were in my life since the moment I entered this world. And we talked about headlines and we talked about articles, and my dad would red ink my papers for school. So I've just been around people who loved words and loved communication and loved writing.
Nice.
But in my family, I was the one who seemed the least likely to do anything with writing. I was an athlete and I just did different things. And so it took me a while to actually really have this little moment when I started to think of myself as a writer. And that happened in the university setting when I was taking a creative writing class. And it was introduction to creative writing with a fiction element for part of the class and then a poetry element. And I loved reading novels, so I really thought the fiction would be my entry point.
Yeah.
But it was poetry, interestingly, that became my thing. And it became my thing. Like, that's how I started thinking of myself as a writer. And it's how my family started thinking of me as a writer, because nobody else was a poet. So it allowed me to be a writer in my family unit of writers without being the same as anybody else.
Yeah.
So my brothers in advertising, my parents were journalists. I got to be the poet. But I did branch out from there and do all kinds of writing over the years. And so I definitely have not just been a poet and only a poet. I've done freelance writing. I submitted to magazines, worked for corporate types of communication. I then started writing books and moving into that world of traditional publishing. And then I started working as an editor on an editorial team, and then another one they were sort of related. And that, to answer your question about how I became a writing coach, was when I was basically editing with a coaching heart, although I wouldn't have thought of that. Right. It took my managing editor, who was sort of a mentor to me. Not even sort of, she was a mentor to me. She said, you should be a writing coach. And I said, what's a writing coach?
Yeah.
And she said, go find out. And so I said, okay. And I looked it up and I saw what was out there at the time, which has been many years now. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I do this. And she said, yes, you do it when you edit. When you edit like a coach. Because some people just dive in, they edit the piece, send it on to whatever its next purpose is, and they don't really interact a ton with the author other than to show them what's been done or to ask if they can make a change, but they're all focused on the project. And she said, you're focused on the person.
Yeah.
And you want them to grow as a writer, and that's what coaches are doing. And so why don't you try this? So I hung up my little shingle, if you will, digitally, and started coaching, and I had all these relationships from that era of editing.
Right.
And so I immediately had people who were ready to have me help them take the next step, level up, shift in some way in their writing life. And so that's how I became a writing coach. And it's just been so much fun. I love it.
No doubt. And I can totally see what you're saying. I never thought about it either. The way your mentor was telling you, like, what's the difference? Like, I know what the difference is between just editing a piece and then, turning it in for the next step. But I do tend to want to say, okay, do you understand why I made this suggestion? And I just wanted to let you know, like, this is the way that you would capitalize, a title like this. So you just need to go and Google blah, blah, blah. And then you can,
You're doing it. Obviously you are a coach, but yes, that's exactly right. And I think it's actually easier to understand what a coach is by looking at what it isn't.
Yeah.
And at those distinctions, and you're touching on it right now. I mentioned it too. I think editing is a good place to start, to say, okay, like I was describing very simply, an editor the job of an editor is to get a piece, a project, from wherever it is, whatever state it's in, to whatever state it needs to be in next. So if you're editor at a publishing house, your job will be to go through various phases, developmental phase, and then work with the author on that. And then you'll get it to a proofreading stage, pass it off to a proofreader, and then just, shepherd it to the end. But it's that project that they're focused on.
Yeah.
But the coach might do some editing to help a person understand how to improve, but they're not technically really editing. That's why it's a small distinction, but so important. And when I'm working with clients, I try to make that super clear so that they don't feel like, because I leave a lot of notes. I'm giving them a lot of information.
So much.
And like I link out to articles. I say, here, this explains the capitalization, or this explains the parallelism and and this is a trend I'm seeing in your writing. And I want you to be able to, see it so that you can fix it when you're doing your own revisions. So I'm, doing that. I'm coaching with an editorial eye, but it won't be technically edited. Like, I'll probably miss a comma. I'll probably miss, there'll be, or there's, subjective decisions that another editor or a proofreader would fix or see or spot in some way that I'm missing, because I'm coaching you, because a coach, I'm interested in you as a writer, developing, improving. I'm wanting you to advance. And partly I'll do that sometimes through helping you look at some work and see how to improve your writing skill. And then, there's other roles like mentors. They care about the person, maybe more than projects. And they're going to do it probably for free, unless it's some sort of mastermind arrangement or something. But that's a role where there's also some similarities and overlap with writing coaches, but they are, you're not paying them to do it. And they're going to come with all their knowledge, which is what a writing coach does too. But they're probably not like studying trends and following publishing news and trying to stay abreast of all the shifts and pivots that are happening in the industry. They're just going to bring, like, I learned these things and somebody helped me in the past, and I would like to give back. And that's what mentors do really well. And I've had mentors, and they have been transformative in my writing journey. So it's an incredible role. Both of these roles, we could list all kinds of people who fill a gap. Agents, in the traditional path, they do a lot of coaching, but they're also working on that project, so we all have a different role. And this one is relatively new in the publishing world, and people are still trying to figure out what that is.
Right. And I think that for me, one of the things that I like to mention as close to the beginning as possible is to kind of allay one of the big fears that I think a lot of people have if they don't know what a writing coach is going to do. I always want to say, I am not here to change your book or to change you as a writer, but to help you write a better version of the book that you have in your mind.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't
I
know.
would hope that
How
an
do
editor
you?
would do that too. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
right, exactly. Except for I think that like you're saying, like if you really had to separate them, then the difference is that I'm focused at least 50% on you, the writer. Whereas, the editor at Simon and Schuster has got to be his or her job is to be focused on the project, even though, of course, they're trying not to hurt the author in any way, like hurt their
right.
feelings, or they take time to help you understand if there's something you didn't understand, but they're not there to teach you.
That's right. That's right. They're expecting you to already be a writer capable of making the changes that they say this needs to happen if they're not going to make the change themselves. And I
Yeah.
think if in magazines, which I know you're talking about books specifically, but like magazine editors, they'll often just like make the change and it goes live and you're like, whoa, I didn't write it like that. But
Yeah.
I bet that's the editor doing their job, which is they need it to fit the voice or the style of the magazine. Maybe not the voice, but the style of the magazine.
Yeah.
And they have to make those changes, excuse
Yeah.
me, to make it work. And then also I've noticed too, I think even there's different kinds of coaches. And I'll just back up and say there's different kind of editors too, not
Yeah.
just developmental copy editor, line editor. There's that, of course, but also different styles of editing. And you just touched on an interesting point. There are some who just, like you were saying, they have to get it done for Simon and Schuster and get it ready to go. It has to be done. It has to be done in a certain way. And they follow Chicago manual style or whatever to get that done.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that there are definitely some who just make some changes and said, here are some changes I'm making. Can you approve them? And then there
Right.
are some editors who will say, this part here, I would like you to work on voice or I'd like you to clean this up or tighten it. And they leave it completely up to the writer to be capable of doing that and seeing it and knowing how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see the different types of editors. And I think people, maybe they watch, what's the name of that movie, the film that the guy, he's famous editor from Simon and Schuster, and he always wore a hat in the film, maybe not in real life. I can't think
I
what it's
feel like
called
I
now.
should know the name of this
We should
movie.
like Google it. But
Yeah.
anyway, it came out, and I think people are looking for that kind of relationship where the editor is like really nurturing. What was it, Thomas Wolfe or somebody that he was working with, and he also worked with Ernest Hemingway and Fitzgerald, whoever this famous editor, Max Fitzgerald, Max. He worked with F. Scott Fitzgerald, but it's Max. Okay, so Max was nurturing
Max.
people in a very coach-like way. And I
Yeah.
don't think there's very many editors left who will do that. Like you were just saying, that idea of investing in you and teaching you, they're not doing that very much anymore. Now you get to coaching. And this is where I think it's interesting how maybe your work and my work might be slightly different, because within the world, here's how I view it. And I may be wrong. But all sorts of writing coaches are running their business and structuring their everything, how they work with people in different ways.
Yeah.
But I see a bigger umbrella of writing coach, people who help people, they come alongside them, they figure out where they are and where they want to be, and they try to close that gap in some way. And that's a really broad stroke explanation. But within this
one though. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I think it's, you can see it, right? That's why it's resonating with you.
Yeah.
But then you take this big umbrella of writing coach, and under that are all kinds of specific types of writing coaches. There are some who work with people, they're on LinkedIn and they're working with professionals, helping them develop and be able to write better grants or write better memos or write better white papers. And there are some writing coaches who work with students so they can finish their dissertations. And there are people who are writing coaches who work with people who want to start an online presence or write better social media content. And then there are book coaches. And then you go to the book coaches and you can niche that down. There are some who do memoir like Marion Roach Smith or Louisa Deasy. And there's some who work in the realm of fiction who might even specialize within that.
Yeah.
How would you describe where you're at in that whole matrix?
Well, okay. So I'm going to go back real quick to something that you said. So Max, the awesome editor from Simon and Schuster, I think maybe the reason why there's room for writing coaches now and a need is because as editors at traditional houses got more and more clients and more projects that they had to finish, but still in a deadline based time. So with less and less time, I think they just, by virtue of the fact that there's 24 hours in a day and that doesn't change, had less and less time to work with people. When the editors that I've talked to who used to work at publishing houses, they're like, it just depends on how much time I have. But there's this fast paced turnover, not turnover, but, the project is going through a process. So I think that in my mind, it seems pretty likely that that's part of the reason why this has come out for people who writing coaching, for people who they want to know, why did you make the change and how can I make that change before it even gets to you, stuff like that.
Yes. Filling the gap, like the gap between the point of, like for traditional publishing, let's say, the point between when you have an idea and you're sort of messing around with it, trying to make it come alive and get the concept down and start developing the content, that gap between there and when you might start pitching agents is a long time, like while you're like floundering maybe, or just uncertain. And that's where I think a writing coach is a great role to step in and help you say, let's develop this project so it's ready to pitch. I think the same way, and maybe if you're working with somebody who's doing self-publishing and they're going that route, same thing. There's like this big gap between where they are and where they want to be. And then I think the writing coach can come along there, come alongside them in a way that you're saying, and editors just can't, they just don't have the time, whether it's in the traditional space where they have a stack of projects, not literally digitally these days, but they have a stack of projects they have to work through. They have to get them done. Yeah. And I think that's a great reminder for writers that, like, don't expect it of your editor. Like, maybe consider a coach, because that you're not getting that kind of input from them because they simply cannot give it. And they might want to. They might want to, like you, generously put in the margins. Oh, here's how you can learn more about this, but they just don't have time.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder.
And I think that, like if you're an editor at a traditional publishing house, which I haven't been one, I know some, one of my teachers in grad school was an editor it was one of the H's. So I can't remember if it was HarperCollins or Houghton Mifflin. I can't remember. Just lost my train of thought because I have like 40,000 thoughts. This is great.
So you had a friend who was working in the publishing house, and we were talking about what we were talking about right before that.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go, but that's okay. But I think that that when you're working with a project that you need to, let me say this as a writing coach, I feel very strongly that I want all of my clients to feel like I really hear them, not just listening to what they say. This is where I'm trying to go. And then me kind of being pushy about this is how you're going to get there. But I have a thing myself. I want to feel that I'm heard, not just that the person heard the words that I'm saying. I want somebody to make me feel like, okay, you get me, so I can relax a little bit. Like I don't have to push back because I'm trying to explain, and I don't have to worry about being defensive, which is so, I find that this is still always be something I have to think about as a writer. Like, I don't want to be defensive. I want to be teachable or coachable. And I want to, as a coach, give that to other people, to give them a place where, like, I can say, this is going to be a safe space. I will hear you. And then I will also be offering suggestions and explaining why something doesn't work. Now, I think that maybe, at least for me, and I would love to know what you're thinking, I think the hardest part in working with someone, and these are people that I haven't worked with for very long because of it, is that I really have an encouraging and kind of nurturing personality, but I just don't know what to do with someone who's constantly pushing back and being defensive. Like, I totally get it for a little while, but there's a point at which I'm just like, I don't think I can help you anymore because I don't know how else to help you feel like this is a safe place to explore this. But in order to create something that people are going to want to give you money for, and it's totally fine if that is not your goal, because that isn't always the goal. Right. But there are some things where you're like, I don't know how else to help you except for to keep on telling you the same thing over and over again, which isn't really helping either one of us. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. It's difficult to be coachable. I understand that from a personal perspective, but it's also why I try to be nurturing as a coach.
I'll bet you are so much fun to work with. It's a shame. Those people are missing out on growth, and listening and saying, what can I try here? And I think you bring up something super important. If your listeners are thinking about working with a coach, whether it's you or me or somebody else, I would hope that they would ask themselves, am I ready for this? And there are several things to think about when it comes to this. And I think, am I stuck and I think I need one, or I don't know what to do, or I need information, or I want guidance, or I want input on my project? Then, your thought might be, I need that. I need someone to fill that gap or help me close that gap in my writing life. The second would be, I think, ask yourself if you're ready for that input. If you're still clinging to it, or you're feeling like it's my baby. Of course it's your baby in that sense. There's always this, there's a level of love for it, or we wouldn't be writing in the first place. But are you teachable? You just hit on such a key personality. It's not really a personality trait, just an openness. Am I open to this?
Yeah.
If you aren't, then don't work with a coach yet. Like, go read some craft books and learn more as much as you can on your own.
Right.
Rework it to the extent that you can, and just ask yourself, because that's who you're trusting. If you're going to push back, you're only trusting your own thoughts and your own opinions on your piece.
Yes.
So you're not ready for a coach yet. If all you're going to do is say, no, because this is better. Well, if you know better, then don't hire a coach yet. You're not ready. But I think if you have exhausted all other resources and you've read all the books that you can get your hands on, and you still are finding I don't think this is where it needs to be, maybe I should look into that. And maybe I am open to that input. Then maybe you are the same person could be ready.
Yeah.
But I think don't hire him until you're ready to really listen and try. You got to be willing to try what they say. I think that's a key thing. And then the third thing is super practical. Like, you have to be willing to set aside time for it, make time for it, and to also have some funds to pay for it.
Yeah.
And, those are practical, and it's your choice how you, not everybody has those resources there. That's why you go ahead and read the craft books if you don't have that kind of funding yet. And if you don't have time, I think you've even talked about this on your podcast too. You get into the practice of making that time, however slim it might be. And then you'll start to prioritize your writing. And when you get to that point, then you probably have time to practice and put into practice what a coach might say to you.
Yeah.
But I have had people like that. And, I just have a friendly conversation with them. I say, you have so many strong opinions on how you want this process to go and how you think this book needs to be. And I've offered lots of suggestions, and it's totally fine if you don't want to implement those. But I think we've probably done all we can do here, don't you think? And they usually agree, because so I don't make a point that we've been, this has happened extremely rarely. I can only think of a couple of times, and it was
me
a while
too.
ago.
Yeah.
But I think, if that's happened to you, listener, and if you have worked with a coach or an editor, and there's just this continual clash, just step back and say, is this the right fit? Or am I really ready to receive the kind of input and be open to that?
Yeah.
I have years ago, I did some group coaching. I do quite a bit of group coaching too. I think you do too, where I'm, having conversations with more people, which is interesting because then everybody's sort of weighing in with thoughts and experiences. And they also bring sometimes things I wouldn't have thought of on my own.
Right.
And somebody had an experience as a teacher, and she'd gone to a conference, and it was the National Writers Center or somebody like that has this whole system for how to provide input. And I'm going to just toss it out there because I think it would help both you and listeners guide someone on how to ask for input and how to give input.
Yeah.
And it's three words: bless, address, and press. So one of my clients, I start using this all the time with my clients. And one of my clients, he says, oh, I want you to BAP it, BAP, BAP it. And I want you to BAP it. Okay, so here's briefly what it is. Bless is what we should always do whenever we're reviewing somebody's work or asking for it. Can you tell me what's working? Can you tell me what I'm doing well so I can do more of it, so I don't stop doing what's working?
Right.
So that's the bless part. And some people who have been deeply injured by writing groups, or, their ninth grade English teacher who just red inked them and then just crushed their little spirit, you can be 40 years old and come to the work again and just be really sensitive to that. And that can be very real. And so if you can just say, right now, I just need to know what's working. Can you hold off on the things that aren't working so I can just start to reinforce that I can write, and I do write well, and I have some gifts and skills. And
Yeah.
then later, after a while, we can move on to the other levels, right? And so if they're honest about that, then, just hold off on all the other points and just tell them what's working. Then, and ask for that. If you're the listener and you're working with a writing group or something, you could use this method. The
Yeah.
second one is address, where you can say, tell me what's working, because you always want to add that in through on any level. But then, I'm working on a novel and I'm nervous about my dialogue sounding realistic. So can you focus on the dialogue when you're reviewing this piece? Or I'm working on this prescriptive nonfiction book, and I feel like I'm not sure it's organized in the right order. Can you just make sure while you're reading it, ask yourself, is this logical, the order that makes sense to you? So that'd be a way of asking for them to address something specific. And then the last one is to press in, make every change you recommend of any kind, high or low, big issues in the developmental level, or a comma that you spot. If you're willing to do that and you have the knowledge, I'm all in, bap it, give me everything. And that simple system, it's so simple, so memorable. It has helped so many of my writers get the information they need, not just from me, but other people. When they're asking a beta reader, for example, they might have tell me what's working, and then can you address this one thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you as far as you can use that with anybody who's reading your writing that you're soliciting feedback in any way. So critique partner or critique group, it is so much easier for people to give you what you're looking for if you know what it is. If you think about it for a minute and you're like, this is really what I know, what I want to know. Like, is the character likable enough? Or is the sarcasm like too much and I need to do something else to make her a little bit more like, oh, I want to be friends with her, or is the beginning of the story, like, is the death scene part, at the beginning of this murder mystery, is it too gory? Is it confusing? Because if people know exactly what you're looking for, it's just so much easier to get the kind of feedback you were looking for in the first place. And so much better if you can tell people, listen, I had a period when I had some really bad burnout, and I finally got to the point where I was just going to write something for fun. So I decided to write something so far outside my usual that I wouldn't even consider thinking of it as work. Now, of course, I like it so much that I'm like, oh, I got to figure out a way to finish that and publish that one too. But
that's fun.
But at the time, I just wanted to do something totally outside my wheelhouse so that I wouldn't ever look at it as work, just fun, because it was going to help with this burnout thing. And so I told people who looked at it, listen, I am so vulnerable and fragile right now. If you don't have anything good to say, just don't say anything. Just smile and say, this is really great that you got so much written this week. Yay, you. Like, please do not say anything negative to me, because I can't take it right now. My goal is just to not stop writing again.
You knew what you needed. So you asked for the blast level of input. I think that's so good. And where are you now? Are you in a good place now?
Oh yeah, I'm in the best level now.
Oh, nice.
And that's the thing that I think people should understand. It's not like there's some magical thing that happens when you become a book coach or writing coach. We'll talk about why you use one term over the other. But it's really just a matter of, it's an outside set of eyes who has a clear understanding of the logic of story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I have to remind my nonfiction people sometimes, remember, this is still going to be a story arc. Where's the person at the beginning of the nonfiction book, and where do you want them to end up, at the end of your nonfiction book? So part of it works because it's not our book. Like, we have a lot of knowledge, lots of things that we can draw on, a lot of resources that we can go to help you. But when it's me and my own book, I'm still at the place where, I'm like, okay, editor, I need you to be really hard on this. Like, cause I have my own editor, I really, really want to write a better book than the last one. The last one was pretty good. That means I've got to make this one a little bit better. How can we do that? What am I not seeing that I'm like, oh, you should really turn up the volume on that or something,
Love it. It's so true. It's very, very difficult to be objective about our own work. So even writing coaches need writing coaches and editors to, well, maybe not coaches, but we need editors just to have those other eyes to help us improve. I agree 100%. And I love this openness, like bap it, go hard on this so that it can become better. Because I think, if we aren't growing and improving our work, then I don't know. I think we would even get bored. So I love that about you. You're definitely like striving to become the best writer you can be, and as well as coach.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to be really clear for anyone who's listening, who's doing a lot of self-publishing and you're doing part of the Write Fast and Publish Fast. I am not laying down any sorts of these are the rules of writing and publishing. And if you're not following them, then you're just doing it wrong, because everybody's got a place where they're comfortable. And there's a lot of people who are writing something that may not be the best writing it could ever possibly be. But if they're putting out 6 titles a year and they have an audience that's voracious and is totally fine with, I don't know how to say this in a way that I'm trying very hard not to at all be offensive. If the quality level is such that that group of readers who love that particular thing and they want 6 books a year and they are paying your mortgage and your travel expenses to Hawaii, then I am not saying that you should do it differently. Just saying that if there's a project, because sometimes, you just come up with a project. I've got one that I love this project so much. I'm almost afraid to write it because I want so desperately for it to be awesome,
There's a essay by Ann Patchett called The Getaway Car. And in there, she talks about how when she has a novel idea, it's this perfect butterfly. And she lets it remain this beautiful, perfect butterfly flapping around in her head. But at some point, you have to actually yank that perfect image, that idea that you have that just seems amazing. And you have to yank it down out of your head and slam it down on the desk, stick a pin in it, and start writing it, and it will be flat and lifeless and look like I got hit by a Mack truck. But that
for a little while.
And it won't look exactly like, well, even after the editing, I think it probably never looks quite like that perfection.
That's probably true.
But you have to write the book you can write at the stage that you're at, and forgive yourself for not being the writer capable of writing exactly what you envisioned. But that's paraphrasing the whole that whole section of that essay.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a good reminder that don't let perfectionism keep you from yanking it out of your mind and starting the writing process. And it will be flat, like you said at first. And I think the revision process, having another set of eyes, all of that can make it better, can make it stronger, can make it more beautiful.
Yeah.
And you've got, a project that you really are proud of. And maybe it wasn't perfect, but it's ready to serve readers. And I love what you're saying about that fast distribution process, creation and ship. That, if people want a story, they want a page turner, give them a great page turning story. Give them a story that they all get to they want to see what happens, and they're less worried about this lyrical language and an artful sentence. That person writing that kind of genre maybe isn't working on the great literary novel. And by the way, I did remember the name of the editor, Maxwell Perkins. It's Maxwell Perkins.
There we go.
Did you remember that?
Oh. No.
Anyway, Maxwell Perkins. It's a good movie, and it has Colin Firth as Maxwell, wearing the hat the whole time.
Nice.
But that kind of actually, there's a scene in that movie where Tom. Is it Thomas Wolfe? Anyway, he comes in and he's got stacks and stacks and stacks. He's just written this novel, and it's literally has a group of men coming in, and it's reams and reams and reams, and it has Maxwell staring at this this is what I'm supposed to edit. It's not just this, it was like it looked like somebody just delivered all the newspapers to the person on the corner ready to deliver the newspapers.
Oh, man.
Try to write a little bit tighter than that these days to not only to honor the editor that you're working with, but also those readers who, when you can turn it out fast, write tight, do the best you can, get a good editor to help look it over, and then, go ahead and ship when you feel like it's ready. But I think that if you go through the process, and you probably work with so many self-published authors, they understand that there is a process. You're self-publishing, and you're going to go through the same process that a traditional publisher would run their books through. You're probably just going to do it faster, and you're going to you're going to be a project manager and hire out all those roles. But don't skip the roles.
Right.
Don't skip all those steps and the developmental level, the copy editing level, the line editing, the proofreader. Those should be all maybe different eyes to make sure you have different angles.
Yeah.
And then getting it out there ready to go. So
yeah, totally agree with you. And I think that we're segueing into another thing that people need to be thinking about. if you're thinking that, maybe now is the right time, but how would I choose? Do I just Google book coach or writing coach? So two of the things that I think, Ann, you and I have sort of uh, brought up naturally in the course of conversation is, what kind of book do you write, and what book coach is going to be best for that book? And also, what personality in a human being do you like?
Right.
Like, if you like someone who's got, liveliness and energy and encouragement and, is always kind of your cheerleader in your corner, I think Ann and Kitty here, we might be your kind of coach. But if you want someone who's a little bit more quieter, contemplative, thoughtful, gives you a chance to just like have some silence and think while you're, going through, the conversations on the calls, then maybe you're looking for a different kind of coach. And I think that definitely you should find the person that you really feel like, oh, I connect with this person. Don't you think?
Oh, it's great advice, Kitty. Yes. Yes. So you hit on several things, and I would agree that you're starting with the type of writing coach. So make sure that person can do what you need them to do because of the type of writing you're doing. And so, yeah, a Google search is a starting point. Ask around your writing community to see if other people have worked with a writing coach that they can recommend or that they've heard of. And then when you kind of start like narrowing it down, you have a list. Guess what you could do? You could listen to Kitty's podcast. You could listen to my podcast, and you could kind of get a feel, at least the types of things they seem knowledgeable about and their personality. You can get a taste of that. Like, so definitely, or look on YouTube, like the people might be watching it that way too. And I think those are a way that you can kind of get a feel for different kinds of approaches, different kinds of personalities. You can vet them quite easily these days, or even just look in their social media feed. You might find some videos there, like in just in their Instagram, IGTV. They might have done a live or some sort of event that you can look at and get a pretty good feel for then the type of thing they do and their personality, which I love that. I think that does matter. That's probably partly why you'd be ready to receive from that person, because I feel like I can trust them.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm connecting with them, and I like the way they communicate and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think if you don't, and you have to decide what you value as well. Like, for example, is it important to you that person has published tons of books in my genre? Does that matter? Or, they say that I dated somebody once who said, oh yeah, the best batting coach in the world. And I can't remember he was really into baseball. He said the best batting coach in the world can't bat at all, but he's the greatest.
Yeah.
And so this, I think, can be true of writing coaches. If we understand literature, we understand all the different genres, we might be able to coach even if we haven't published in that area. So you can decide if that's important to you.
Yeah.
And then, okay, this person hasn't published at all, so I'm not going to work with them. Oh, this person, that's decide for yourself what kinds of elements are most important to you. It would be the same if you were in pursuing traditional publishing and trying to find an agent. Right. It's tempting to want to just like take the first yes that you get, but make sure it's going to be a good fit in terms of what are they someone who's going to be a great negotiator for you? I mean, they all should be, but like if that's kind of their sweet spot, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to like always be in your corner when it comes to negotiation, but they're kind of like not super warm and they're not really interested in nurturing your career, and that's important to you, then maybe like keep looking and seeing if you can get any other nibbles, just to have somebody to compare and say, oh yeah, so they still can negotiate, but they're really looking at the longevity of my career, and they're going to help nurture that and look ahead and have some vision for that.
Yeah.
And those are two very different kinds of agents, very, very skilled at what they do.
Yeah.
And you get to decide what you value more. And the same thing here with writing coaching.
Yeah, definitely. And, I've done a lot of research, into other coaches going to their websites and stuff. And I rarely see videos on the website. So I think it's a great idea that you suggested, just go to YouTube and Google their name. Because even if they don't have specific videos about what they do on their website that is meant to explain, like maybe they've been on a podcast interview or they've done some sort of, short YouTube teaching video or something, then at least you can get an idea for like, who is this person and would I like them? And do they make me feel like I can trust them with my work?
Yeah. And they might have even been at a conference or something. And sometimes conferences will put up a little excerpt from that, and you can see them on a panel.
Yeah.
And say, I like the way they think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good tip.
Love it. Now, earlier I said, so I'm not sure which questions I should ask you now before the interview or after we hit record. And there was one and you're like, oh, after we hit record. So is there a reason why you have chosen writing coach as opposed to book coach?
Yes, actually, it reflects, I think, the all the pieces of my writing life I get to leverage to serve my clients now. And I have written books, and they've been all traditionally published. One was with a smaller indie publisher; the other two were with mainstream Christian publishers. And so I've got that experience as well. But and maybe you can explain too a little bit more about how you view book coaching, but the climbing into the world of the writer who has a book project that may, you pointed out that some can be written very quickly and they have the ability to turn it out fast, but some will take months. So to sign somebody I'm going to be working for months with, reviewing large chunks of material over time means I could take fewer clients, but I would have the reward of coaching them all the way through writing a book. But I'm going to look at every word, probably review it to some extent.
Yeah.
So that I think that's where you see that area where you could almost have a developmental editor who could do similar work because you're providing copious input, notes and input on that process. Yeah. Now, I have chosen to call myself a writing coach because I realize I can help people with all sorts of different things. I help with platform building tips and ideas to the extent that I actually developed a membership program because I realized when I was coaching people on developing nonfiction book proposals, which I also have a program for with a group component, but I used to do that just one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And I realized the thing that they kept running up against was platform. And so I developed this whole platform program. But my point is that even one-on-one, that's something I can advise. I have experience with that. I'm watching the trends. I can help advise you on a way in so that you can start seeing results and raising your own visibility in your subject matter area. I work a lot with nonfiction writers. So I think, that's just like one of many things that if I call myself a book coach, I don't know that people would think about all the different strategies that we can come up with, the plan we can have for you to level up. And for example, one of my early clients, she said, I want to become a better writer and I want to have a blog. That was her goal. Books aren't even on her mind. That's like maybe someday in 10 years. But right now, I just want to have an online presence and I want to become a better writer. Yeah. So a writing coach is a better fit for that because I do that. I love doing that. We got her all set up. And Kitty, it was amazing. This woman came at this a little bit older and she's given me permission to talk broadly about her experience. She came through a very difficult childhood and has been very creative throughout her life. She's written, but she wants to get better and improve. And I love that heart, that's being ready for coaching. So she came to me and she got to know me through one of my books that I had written. And she said, I wonder if she's coaching. And then she found out it's pretty much after I hung up my digital shingle. So we started working together. And in this instance, I rarely work with people in person, but we happen to be local. So we met locally. And we were working on various pieces and she had a little stack of things ready to roll. And she said, okay, can you teach me how to have a website? So we came up with a simple setup and we loaded up one of her pieces. I showed her how to do that. And I showed her where to click publish. And so this be the first thing ever, right? I said, okay, you want to click publish. When this goes live, the whole world can access it. It doesn't mean the whole world will read it. But when you click publish, it means your words are out there ready for people to read. So she clicked publish and I look over and there's tears in her eyes.
Yeah.
I said, are you okay? And she said, Ann, I've never had a voice. I've never had a voice before. And here she had agency. Here she can have control over what words get sent into the world. And she gets to make that decision. Nobody else. Yeah. Self-published authors get that experience too. The rest of people going the traditional route have to wait for gatekeepers. But that feeling, that's what writing coaching, that's what I get to do as a writing coach. I get to help people with all sorts of different moments and goals that they're aiming for. I mean, yes, I have coached somebody who won the 2020 Book of the Year award and Best New Author, which was amazing. That's very rewarding. That was actually amazing. Like for a new author to also win Book of the Year, both, extraordinary. But he has to do the work. And I think that's something to remember too, is that a writing coach is not your ghostwriter. They're not collaborating with you in that way. They're collaborating with you in a supportive way. Right. And they're going to make plenty of suggestions, but they're helping you become the writer you need to be. I think you said it better than what I'm saying it now, but like we're helping you write the best book you can write and be the best writer you can be.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, like he did all the work, he did all the writing. And actually we worked on his book proposal and he landed an agent. So I didn't even really have to do the book coaching.
Wow.
I just got him all set up and then passed him off. And that's another thing about writing coaching. Usually there's a period of time that they need me. And then when that time is done, they've achieved that goal or they've leveled up or whatever's happened, that they've closed that gap.
Yeah.
And they're ready to take the next step. And they sometimes don't need me anymore,
Yeah.
which is cool. Actually, I really like it. It means like I did my job.
Yes, exactly. I really miss working with the client that I had this last fall. He was 88 years old. He was writing his first thriller, and he went through my self-publisher book course. He's like, my book is totally finished. It's totally edited. I'm totally ready. So I just want to be in the self-publisher book bit. And so we did all the work, and along the way, everything is on Zoom. So we're making recordings and I'm sending him the recordings. I'm like, so when you write book 2, it was awesome talking to this 88-year-old man. He was totally on top of everything. He had read so many books on writing, books on publishing, books on self-publishing. He was totally keeping me on my toes, which I loved. It was so much fun for me,
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so here's the videos. When you get ready for book 2, like watch the videos over again.
Good
and if
idea.
you don't need me, great, go.
Yes.
And if you do need me, I'm here. So it is, I
That's
kind of
smart.
feel a little bit like some of my favorite high school teachers. Like I feel like I have this one teacher, I think she's in her 80s and I'm still in touch with her. It's crazy.
No, that's a great analogy. Yes. They have to say goodbye. The kids graduate and they go on their. Love it. I love it. Yes. Okay, Kitty, how do people know when they're ready for you to work with? Like, who's your ideal client?
Yeah. That's such an interesting question, because you always have to be asking yourself that question. It's not the whole world. It's not anyone who's writing a book. I also call myself a writing coach rather than a book coach, but for the most part, I'm focusing on people who are writing a book of some kind. It may just be that you want to write your life story or some sort of memoir that will never go further than your family. I want you to be able to get all of your thoughts and feelings down on paper and look at it and go, yeah, that was what I was trying to say. And if you want to send to a traditional publishing house or self-publish, like I feel like I'm equally excited to help with helping you to finish a book that you're not going to publish, that you're going to send to agents, or that you're going to self-publish, because I think these are all fabulous paths. It's just that every person, and sometimes just each book, I think, has its own path. So
I love that. Yes. I wouldn't have thought of that. Each book having its own path. That's interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because I've self-published all of my books so far, but I have a love affair with everything Hallmark. I love Hallmark greeting cards, Hallmark movies, Hallmark books. and I've become friends with the editor at the Hallmark Publishing House. And and my goal is just to find a story that is exactly perfect for her and her house, just because I love Hallmark.
Oh, that's because so fun.
Yeah, exactly. For the fun of it. Yeah. So, but for me, I'm always looking for somebody who's eager and excited. I wanted to work with people who, like, you don't have to have my personality, but I want to work with people who respond to encouragement. And I am really pushy about making my clients celebrate all the little steps along the way. So I also have a membership group, and we meet twice a week to do a writing sprint. And then people also, show each other things like, this is the landing page for signing up for my newsletter. What do you think? Oh, I think that's good. The color's off and the font's too small, but otherwise we love it, stuff like that.
That's fantastic.
And one of the women, she types like a maniac. I don't know where she learned to type so fast. And so it's become sort of a unwritten goal of the group. If anybody can write more words in 30 minutes than Sarah, then
that's fun.
It's like,
She's the benchmark. She's
exactly.
Do you know the number? I want to try.
Like, she writes she can write, if she knows where she's going, she can write between 900 and 1200 words in half an hour.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So yesterday,
Tell Sarah,
I know, I bow down. So yesterday, one of the other guys beat her by like 80 words. And we were like,
Oh,
yeah.
it's like, yeah, give him a star. That's
Yeah.
great.
So, and I'm always about celebrating things. So I
Yes,
made
yes.
two of them tell us, what are you going to do to celebrate the fact that you finally put your newsletter up? And
Yep,
I
yep.
made the other fellow tell us, are you going to give yourself any kind of like a candy bar or an ice cream or anything for the fact that you finally beat Sarah's word count? He's like,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes. Yes, I might do that myself if I can
Right?
hit that goal. I wrote it down. Oh, that's great.
So
I love
I
it.
love stories. I love,
Mm,
whether they're fiction or nonfiction. I have actually worked with a lot of pastors to write books that are
mhm.
kind of ministry related.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't know how that keeps happening, but maybe just because I love it. I love helping with that kind of book too.
Yeah, you
But
probably get word of mouth recommendations. They're like, she was
yeah.
amazing.
But yeah, I tend to really look for people who are excited. Um, they they've got something they really want to work on, and they're looking for help. Um, I think
Yeah,
some
that's good.
people, oh, we kind of touched on this. Like, I want help, but maybe I don't realize that I'm not emotionally ready yet to have somebody be suggesting changes. And remember, coaches don't make changes. They just suggest when they think that something could be done better, something that you started out, and we're just helping you to make it better.
Yeah, sometimes I will make a change in there and say, I'm putting this in here to kind of model
Yeah.
what I'm talking about in the, so I'll leave the comment. They'll say, you'll see a change. And that's just showing you one way. It's just
Right.
one way.
And
So
if you
that
understand what the problem that I'm pointing out and you want to fix it another way, like, definitely do it. Right.
yeah, and sometimes I'll give multiple options. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes. So when you say then you're a writing coach, but you probably do mostly book coaching. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I
And
think
advice
that I
on the
just,
career to like the
right.
platform and
Yeah.
things
So we
too,
talk
brand.
about things like, you need to get your newsletter up yesterday,
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, I think that I pretty much do focus a lot more just on the actual words that we're putting down. Yep. And
Okay.
just making
Yeah.
sure that you have kind of an idea of like, what are you trying to do with it? One of the other people
Yeah.
in my membership group, she is going to create and self-publish and do the entire thing, which usually takes a ton of people, her own graphic novel.
Oh,
So she's writing it, she's
yeah.
drawing it, she's coloring it,
Wow.
doing everything.
Those are so hot. There's like a whole market for that. And if she is making it, she understands the market. So she
Right,
knows.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Fantastic.
So
You're empowering people.
that's yes, that is my word. That is my word. I love it.
If I decide to self-publish, I'm gonna hire you as my writing coach.
Awesome. Well, so what kind of clients are you usually keeping an eye out for, thinking, oh, that would be my perfect client?
Well, wow, I don't know. One thing I really love about my work is the variety. So I could go from, like, I gave you a couple of examples. I could work with somebody who's, aspiring to become an author in the traditional market.
Yeah.
And that's as exciting to me. And I work with a lot of people who have that goal. And sometimes I love the process of like broadening their horizons and saying, what if you actually had a whole program, or your brand was like bigger than this and the book was just one piece of it. Sometimes I challenge them in that way and they're like, no, just want to write. And then so, okay, good. I just want to explore that possibility. And anyway, it's just so fun to dream with them, explore beyond that and all around that, so that we make sure that really is what their dream is. And then, okay, if that's your dream, you need to do these things
Yeah.
to achieve that goal. I love all that, but I have people find me. I don't know. I must have just hit the SEO jackpot, because I just have people find me on Google searches. So
Nice.
any people can come at me with all kinds of requests. And I take a lot of them just because it's just so fun to have variety. So
Yeah.
I work with people in the marketplace who want to just improve their skills so that they have that skill. And I would say all of them have said, wow, within just a couple of sessions, I've had colleagues saying, that was fabulous. I understood it like I never understood before. Thank you. I've shared it with my, the team, or things like that have
Nice.
happened where and then they realize, okay, so everybody writes, but I can learn to write better. And that
Yeah.
is going to advance my career.
Yeah.
But I also, work with people like the woman I told you about, who she just wanted an online presence because she wanted to share her words. And then actually her world, had moved a lot and had built little communities in all the places. And she actually gets a lot of hits on what she writes because she shares about it on her social media outlets.
Nice.
That's super fun too. I don't know. I don't want to like pin it down, but
That's how I feel. Yeah.
high level, I want somebody who's like ready for it, ready for like we talked about, ready, open to my suggestions. They're willing to try.
Yeah. Just
And
try. Yeah.
and they're and they look at Ann Kroeker and say, that's somebody I'd like to learn from. And then they would be willing to trust me enough to try things, so that if it is something as large as a book, that we could go through the process, because it isn't just the book. There's the industry, understanding the industry. You need to understand what book publishing is expecting of you, and all of that.
Yeah.
We need to go through all of that.
Yeah.
And if you can stick with me, we'll get you down the track and see if we can get you as close as possible to hearing, to be well positioned to hear yes. But nothing's guaranteed, but I'll do all I can to position you well if you do the work.
Nice. Perfect. I love it. And the other thing, because you and I really enjoy the variety, which is probably why I love this job so much, because I was just talking to he's actually a professional storyteller, like a verbal storyteller. So interesting. So interesting. And we were talking, and he's like, yeah, I've never actually had like technically a job. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have the same, creative things going on in my head that for him, he just decided not to get a quote job. For me, I've had like 40 jobs because I get bored so easily.
Oh, yes.
The best part about being a book coach is that, so right now, we've just finished the thriller. There's a middle grade superhero author, which is so fun. The graphic novelist, the minister writing a ministry book. Oh my gosh, a friend of mine is working with me. She's got like, I think it's 150 or 200,000 word fantasy novel. And she's trying to, corral and make it into one complete story without
or a
all
trilogy.
the tangents. Right. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. You're right. Like that's so much, like so many different things that are stories and plot lines going through your head. Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
So, but there are a few things, and I'm guessing that you have a few. There are a few things where I'm like, I would like to help anybody who wants me to help them, but I probably can't do you much good if you write erotica. For one thing, I might be just too embarrassed to read some of it.
Yeah, I think people should just like, and I'm guessing it's similar to this. You just drew your line in the sand there. And so somebody listening to this now knows, oh yeah, okay, so she's not a good fit for
or
me.
Children's picture books. Like, I just don't know anything about that market. Middle grade, yes. Picture books.
Yeah. And so I think, I try to be pretty clear in I have a work with me page. If they go to the work with me page, I think it's fairly clear, but I probably need to clear up a few things and make it a little, hone in a little bit more so that they can filter, like, oh yeah, she doesn't really do that, so I won't need to pursue this further. But I do think if you're not sure, go ahead and ask, like go ahead and fill out the form, and that will go to my contact, go to my inbox.
Yeah.
And let's at least talk about it. And honestly, I love helping people. So if I can't help you, I will be honest and I'll say, you know what, I could do this, but I know 3 people who'd be way better at it. And I'm going to give you their contact information for you to explore those people.
Exactly.
As an alternative. And if after exploring those people, you really still want to work with me, but understand my limitations, you can do that. But I want you to understand, that I can do it to this extent, and this is my experience or whatever. Yeah. And so I'm super honest. So you might as well inquire. And I bet is that similar with you? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like it's better to ask than to wonder and wish that you knew what to ask. Just ask, because I have no problem getting on a 30-minute Skype call not Skype anymore. Really, Zoom is what I use now.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Let's find out what your goals are. And like you, it's not, and I'm just totally guessing that you might be similar. It's not that I'm such an awesome person that I'm going to honestly tell you, like, I'm not the best coach for you. So-and-so is. No, it's because neither one of us will enjoy it. If I'm not the best coach for you, then I'll always feel a little bit uncomfortable or, insecure in the same way that anybody feels insecure if they feel like maybe this isn't really what I'm good at. Like if you're at a job and somebody asks you to do something, you're like, yeah, this sounds like a recipe for disaster. I don't really know that.
Yeah, but in a job, you don't have a choice. But with the writing coach, you have a choice. And I would say, and I'm guessing this is also part of you. I would agree with that. And I would also say, I want the best for you.
Yeah.
And if I am not if I want you to succeed, and I know that this is an area that, based on what you just told me, that somebody else could do this way better, and you could get your project where you want it to be, they can help you close that gap between where you are and where you want to be, I would gladly refer you to somebody else. Not because I feel like I'm not a good coach, but because I want you to have the best experience you can. And I think this person is the one who will serve you well. That's how I view it. The recommendations and referrals as just like, let me pass you on, make a suggestion of people you could explore. So I try to keep a running list of coaches to recommend. So
that's a good idea. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Well, do you have like a
Ann
referral
Kroeker
program?
Will be on one of my.
Yeah. I was gonna say, can you like give Ann? No, I'm just kidding. No, I would do it. No expectations. It's because I want them to have a good fit, right? Like not because I'm going to get an affiliate kickback from anybody, because I don't have any of those arrangements with coaches.
Yeah. And you were just saying something else that I was thinking about. You just started making me laugh about the kickbacks. Now I lost my train of thought.
I distracted you.
Yeah, I just money. What? Huh? Yeah, I think that reaching out to people and, Google and see what comes up, and Google writing coach, book coach. If you have a specific thing, Google, you could Google your genre. So for the most part, I would call myself, if I was going to put a tag on it, I would say that I'm a genre fiction coach in general. And then there are other things that I just love to do and I'm kind of good at, like the ministry books. I don't know why. I just like helping pastors write books and getting them out there.
No, that's a great idea to add that extra modifier or the extra detail or the extra noun that would help, because then somebody who does that probably has that in their description of what the kind of coaching they do. Hopefully they put it on. By the way, if you're listening to this and you're a coach, then I would have some pages where you talk about the kind of coaching you do and put those keywords in there, not to stuff it with the SEO stuffing, but so that people know and they can show up at your page and they go, oh yeah, like she does exactly what I need. Let me go explore that with her. And, and I've had people inquire and I've gotten back with them and they've chosen somebody else, great. And I just scoot them on my little Trello board over to, they've chosen somebody else. Right. And so no hard feelings if I'm not the one that you picked for whatever reason. Yeah. And then if I can, again, point them in another direction too. But I do love it. And I'm glad you love it too. And it's fun to talk to somebody else who serves writers, helps them, move toward their dreams and make a difference with their words. You have the heart for this, and I can see why you shine.
Oh, thanks. I have to say that without this being some sort of a reciprocal fan club arrangement, that I'm thinking, okay, if I think of a book that it falls into Ann's parameters, I'm going to call her and say, hey.
All right. Well, you've got my number.
Well, we actually, I cannot believe I'm looking at the time going, oh, I feel bad for people listening going, why can't Kitty have shorter interviews? But I wanted to say thank you so much. This has been, I think, really, really helpful for people to have a better understanding of what it is that we do. And I think it will also help them to understand when they might want to hire someone. For some people, it's going to be like, I kind of know what I want to do, but I don't even know where to start. And I'm happy to have someone help me where to start. Great. If you're stuck in the middle and you're like, oh, now I'm really stuck. Great. That's the time. Basically, when you have, like you were saying, Ann, when you've exhausted the resources that you know what to do with, that probably is a really good time. Think of it as do I have time to take a couple of classes at a college right now, some university courses? If you don't have time and you don't have money, then you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to wait until next semester, right? So I think of it as similar, because it's going to take some time for you to put into it the amount of work to get out of it what you were really hoping, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's a really, really great comparison. Yeah, that college class idea. That's a really great, okay, so I'm going to view it like that. Am I in the right place? Do I have what I need? Am I ready for this? I can put it off. You also really, really hit on that idea that we exhaust the resources. Love that. But also do I need somebody at different stages? And I just love that little, the little mechanism that I've exhausted all resources and I'm still stuck. I think that's a good, a little indicator. That's when they're when your white flag goes up, help, I'm ready, I give up. I can't do it anymore on my own. Ask a coach, at least explore it.
Exactly. And for everybody who's been listening to me for a while, or if you're listening to your very first episode today, I absolutely positively, not even using hyperbole, which is one of my favorite devices, 110%, which I know isn't really a number, believe that you can write a book, that anybody could write a book. They might need some help, they might not. And I absolutely am convinced that almost any book could change the world. Now, I think that books could change the world in a positive or a negative way. I would love to work with people who would like to make people laugh a little bit more, be entertained a little bit more, learn something. I don't think that I would want to work with somebody who's like, this is how you make a pipe bomb and stick it in a subway. I'm not your coach. I definitely think that we can make the world a better place. And Ann, I totally see that in you. And I just so appreciate you sharing all your excitement and energy and knowledge with our audience. This is fabulous.
Well, thanks for having me, man. What a treat.
This has been fun.
It's been super fun. Just, yeah, two like-minded people. I think, some of the things you mentioned, I'm like, yes, about life, about coaching, and about what you just said about books. Yeah, let's change the world, and ideally for the better. So, yeah.
Yeah. So where can people find out more about you and all of your many things? You have books, you have a podcast, you have stuff. Tell us, where can we find you?
Thank you for asking. Or inviting me to share that. So if they can spell my last name, which is Kroeker, then they can pretty easily find me almost anywhere. But annkroeker.com is sort of the starting place, and you can click around. But I created a page called annkroeker.com/everything. And I just sort of honed in on all the free and paid ways that you could explore working with me. So you could listen to the podcast, you can read articles in different things, you could sign up for different things. But there's one thing that I think would be of particular interest to your listeners or your viewers if they're watching on YouTube. And that's this. I have this 3-day challenge. It's craft your book's big idea. So if you're working on nonfiction, you've got this book that's in you and you just can't articulate it. You just can't wrap the words around. What is this book's big idea? That core concept. Sign up for the challenge. It's an evergreen challenge. You can join anytime. So you're not missing out if it's not like a live thing. I did it live. And then I saved all that so that I could deliver it to anybody at any time so that they can go through the challenge themselves.
Brilliant.
And so they get there by going to annkroeker.com/3 day. Or they can get there by the everything page. But I really think that your listeners, when they go through that challenge, they're going to be like, I've got it. I have a core concept. I can move forward. And so if you feel like you're stuck and you don't have the money for a coach, or you just want to see what it's like to work with Ann Kroeker, that would be a way that you could experiment, cost you nothing. You sign up, you can go through that process and just see, can I get that book out of me? Yeah. And that's the first step. I have to know what this book is about and be able to articulate what it is. And, a little bonus, you'll come up with a working title at the end too. So I think that would be a fun way for your listeners to take the next step.
Yes, I agree. That's fabulous. What a great idea too, to take the challenge that you did and make it into an evergreen that anybody can participate in. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I'm here to serve. If I can help people take that next step, whatever it is, I look for all the ways to do that.
Oh, I love your heart, Ann. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been super fun.